everybody. This is Elisa Chiu. I am the founder and CEO of Anchor Taiwan. It is with tremendous pleasure and honor to gather so many of you from around the world to participate in this session with a topic which is very close and dear to my heart about cross-border innovation. I started Anchor Taiwan in 2017 with a passion to connect people through entrepreneurship and culture, and a belief that community and capital are powerful tools to advance the world. I believe that there is a better way for cross-border collaboration. And over the years, through the entrepreneurial residency programs, innovation sprints, hundreds of ecosystem events, we have brought together founders, investors, business political leaders from more than 15 countries with thousands of change makers. And we have become an important conduit for cross-border collaboration and soft landing in Asia through Taiwan. Last year, one of the most shared and liked posts on our LinkedIn is this. We did a quick survey about listed companies in Taiwan with their cash balance. And we found that there were over 33 companies with over $2 billion sitting on their balance sheets. This shows that as companies increasingly seeking external innovation and strategic partnerships, a lot of Taiwanese companies are well equipped with tremendous dry powder. This also shows that a lot of these Taiwanese companies can be your important partners, not just with expertise and experiences and resources when it comes to manufacturing and also go-to-market in Asia, but also strategic capital. This also shows that the world has a lot of interest to learn more about Asian counterparts, especially around corporate venturing. As an ecosystem builder, naturally, the first thing that we did was to start connecting the change makers within these corporates. Together with our strategic partner, DIGITIMES, so far we have hosted 6 exclusive roundtables, bringing together chairpersons, general managers, CEOs, vice presidents, and investors who are responsible for new businesses and CVCs from more than 60 leading companies in Taiwan. We have learned so much about their innovation journeys, approaches, challenges. Very quickly, one thing became apparent. That is, corporate venturing and corporate innovation should be global by nature. Yet, there's still a lot of misunderstandings, painful obstacles, and hence missed opportunities about doing business with Asia. It is time for us to join forces with regional leaders outside of Taiwan and invite the world over. We believe that collectively, we have a lot to offer with our supply chain boosted innovation ecosystem. And this is why we are curating a series of roundtables called Asia Venturing. Through this, we bring together industry leaders to redefine the possibilities of cross-border opportunities. It is with events like this that we take that very first step to share, connect, and hopefully inspire for that ultimate collective win-win. Thank you for being a part of this, especially at the very first session to kick off this exciting new venture. In the next few months, we will cover topics such as future of mobility, how to innovate and partner with traditional industries in Asia, and how can global unicorns leverage Asia from zero to exit. I look forward to a lot more conversations to come. This series would not have been possible without our partner and co-host, DIGITIMES. Before we start, I would like to invite Huang, Vice President at DIGITIMES, to give us some insights on today's topic. Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Elisa. Good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm Huang, the Vice President of DIGITIMES. Hi, Jay, Minette, Michael, and Tiffine. Glad to have all of you join the webinar. Before the panel, I would like to share 2 interesting figures. Here's the first one. DIGITIMES see an emerging trend of corporate venturing development in Asia, which is due to phenomenal economic growth within the region, the US-China trade war and the follower supply chain shift, the RCEP trade agreement, and the digital technology and green energy adoption. The bars show the market cap and the numbers of our 2021 Asia Supply Chain Top 100 corporates. Digitize Asia tracked Asian companies from tech and automotive sectors and ranked by their revenue. The top 100 companies are mainly from East Asia, namely Japan, China, South Korea, and Taiwan. We believe technology-related investments will be the main lane for corporate venturing in Asia, and the tech supply chain will play an important role in the coming years. The dots show the adoption rate of corporate venturing among large corporations. The status of corporate venturing in Asia varies by country. Japan has the highest adoption rate, which is 95%. South Korea and China follow. Their adoption rates are 85% and 70% separately. Taiwan, Vietnam, and Indonesia have much lower adoption rates, which are 20, 30, and 35% respectively. You can see China in East Asia, Japan, Japan, China, and South Korea have a good achievement in both tech supply chain and the corporate venturing arena. Taiwan has very competitive tech supply chain, though the adoption rate of corporate venturing is not so well. On the other hand, in Southeast Asia, the tech supply chain is less developed. Corporate venturing is driven by the market, while the activities vary by country. The second figure shows the unicorns in Southeast Asia until June 2021. 6 from Singapore, 4 from Indonesia, 1 from Philippines, and 1 from Thailand. Most of these unicorns are backed by corporate, 10 over 12, whoa. And the majority of these unicorns are backed by foreign corporates. For example, Grab is the biggest unicorn in Southeast Asia. Its corporate investors are mainly from overseas, which include Japan's Toyota, Honda, and Yamaha, China's Didi Chuxing and Qunar, South Korea's Hyundai, Indonesia's EMTech Group, and Microsoft and Booking.com from the US. In conclusion, in order to pursue innovation, we believe cross-border investment backed by corporates is a critical and emerging issue in Asia. Now it's over to you, Elisa.
Thank you, Eric. Well, another curation for Asia Venturing is that all of our interviewers are keynote and panel speakers themselves with tremendous industry expertise. Our interviewer today, Jay Onda, is a CVC veteran, most recently with Orange Silicon Valley and previously at Yamaha Motor Ventures and Docomo Capital. He brings over 11 years of corporate innovation and venture experience and 15 years of startup experience from Silicon Valley. CVC aside, as a friend, I also know that he is particularly passionate about tech for good. I will let Jay take over and bring out our all-star panel today. Jay, the stage is yours.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for such a nice introduction. I was going to say that myself, but it sounded much better coming from you, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, again, my name is Jay Onda, and I'll be the interviewer today. And today, we'll be talking about cross-border innovation. And so our three amazing guests brings many years of industry experience and thought leadership. And what's unique is that we're going to cover a wide breadth of information as each one of our guests sees innovation from three distinct perspectives. So we have allocated some time towards the end of our session to answer questions from the audience. So please submit them in the questions panel, and we'll do our best to address them towards the end. So I'd like to welcome our three guests. So we have Michael Lee, General Manager of the Business Solutions Group at Qisda, parent company of BenQ. Minette Navarrete, President of Kickstart Ventures, the CVC of Globe Telecom in the Philippines and Ayala Corporation. And Tiffine Wang, Partner at MS&AD Ventures, the CVC unit of Mitsui, Sumitomo, and Aioi, Nissay, Dowa Corporations. Thank you very much for joining us. At this time, I'd like to ask our guests to introduce themselves. And so I'll just go by alphabetical order. And Michael, if I may start with you with a self-introduction and a brief overview of your organization and what your parent company does.
Hello, everyone. This is Michael from Qisda Group. I'm Vice President and General Manager of the Business Solution Group in Qisda. Under my business group, I have 5 public companies and more than 30 companies under my business group. And I'm also in charge of the corporate venture jobs for the Qisda group. Qisda starts from 1984. At the beginning, we are peripheral manufacturing company for Acer Computer Group. We officially spin off from Acer from year 2000. We invest AU optical at AU. Now is the top 1 manufacturer for LCD maker. And also we invest BenQ brand to the market. So from 10 years ago, we think about how to migrate to our next step. So we built up we quite familiar with venture capital games in the past decades. But we start the CVC jobs to help our business migrate to another field or another to face some of the paradigm shift. So we actively to start from 5 years ago. We in the past 5 years we invest around more than 50 companies, and totally the scale is around $3 billion. And that's my introduction.
Thank you, Michael. Minette, may I ask you for your self-introduction, a brief overview of your organization and what your parent company does, please?
Okay, so echoing Jay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Minette Navarrete. I represent Kickstart Ventures. Kickstart is a 9-year-old corporate venture capital firm. We are wholly owned by Globe Telecom, a leading mobile operator in the Philippines, and a joint venture of Singtel, out of Singapore, of course, and Ayala Corporation, which is the Philippines' first business house. Kickstart Ventures invests globally out of 3 funds. We focus on early stage and early growth stage tech startups. And thus far, we have been supporting over 100 founders in 51 companies in 7 countries. Jay, you asked about, what does our parent do? We have, I guess, Globe Telecom, a mobile operator, is pretty obvious. We have 2 grandparents, if you will. Ayala Corporation, which is the Philippines' first business house. It's 187 years old. They're in banking and property, so mobile communications, energy, infrastructure. So like the rest of Asia, a pretty diverse range of businesses within what was originally a family group. The other one is Singtel with over 700 million consumer and business customers. So I guess you could say partnering is in our DNA. With that, I'll hand it back to Jay.
Okay, thank you, Minette. And Tiffany, if I may ask you for your self-introduction and a brief overview of your organization and what your parent company does, please.
Absolutely. So I'm Tiffany Wang. I'm a partner at MS&AD Ventures. We're an early stage global fund. We make investments all over the world. It's backed by Mitsui, Sumitomo, and Aioi, Nissay, Dowa. We invest in a pretty wide range of things: insurtech, fintech, mobility, digital health, impact. We've been around since 2018 and have 50 companies in our portfolio. And we have 2 functions. One is to do investments, and then the other one is actually to do business development and partnerships. And our parent company, MS&AD, is one of the largest non-life insurance companies in Japan and Southeast Asia.
Thank you. And just so everybody knows, there is also Joan Yao, VP of Kickstart Ventures, who will be joining us in the Q&A section later on in the session. So she'll be popping up and joining us in a little bit. Okay. So let's double click and talk a little bit more about your organization. CVCs, there's a lot of strategies, a lot of different approaches. You're really curious to know what makes your organization unique compared to other CVC or corporate units. And Minette, Kickstart Ventures is on their 3rd fund now, which sounds fantastic. As we talk about your unique positioning, can you also take us through your journey and how you're able to identify the market needs and create these success stories to get to this point of a 3rd fund?
Thanks, Jay. Interesting question. I guess I'll start out by saying that we are not experts. We're still learning. 9 years old is not a lot of time. We hear a lot about lean startup, and I guess we were testing the concept of, is there a concept for a lean venture capital firm? The Philippines is a country, listening to Eric talk earlier, the Philippines is not on that map. We don't have a lot of, right, Eric? I mean, it's a country with no big organized startup scene. There were not many technology venture capital firms. In fact, not many venture capital firms. So when we pitched to the Globe Board for a fund, we had to be absolutely honest and pretty pragmatic. We started out with a tiny fund, I think the tiniest fund in the country at the time. It was just about $2.5 million US, but we kept it evergreen. And the thesis was that if there was a scene, if there were enough startups, if there was enough demand, we could keep adding to the fund. So we kept it evergreen. And frankly, if there was no demand, then there was no demand. We didn't need any more cash. So from that first $2.5 million, that fund is now $10 million. And in the course of time, we raised two more funds, a $50 million fund for Globe Telecom to invest in basically technology, media, telecoms related tech startups. And then last year, we launched a $180 million fund for 5 affiliate companies under the Ayala Corporation. So today, those 3 funds of about $240 million are all operating. We look for early growth stage companies around the world.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we see patterns in cycles of corporate venture, right? And so every 3 to 5 years, there's usually like a pivot or a new initiative. But in your case, it's like, instead of a pivot, it's like an additional fund, right? Giving you more firepower and more expansion. So I think that's a fantastic success story. And Michael, you helped scale Qisda into what it is today. What makes your organization unique? And from all that experience, like, how did you transform your company culture to adopt innovation?
I think the investment, such kind of DNA could be is one about the major DNA in this group. Actually, the company is set up by Acer Group. So in the past 37 years, we faced 3 major migrations. So in the beginning, we are the keyboard, mouse, and CRT monitor manufacturer. When we faced some of the paradigm shift in 1996, so we started up our venture capital to invest LCD maker. And now in the past 20 years, we enjoyed the display business well. And 10 years ago, we feel we might face another change and also migrate to another field. So we start the medical service and also the business solution business, this kind of the migration. However, if we want to build a new business internally, sometimes it's very hard for, I think, most of the mature companies. So I think it's not difficult for us to convince all the manager that we must use the investment way to accompany with our business operation. So we set up our goal different from other VC. Actually, we set up a goal and we try to build the team for the new business. As you know, in the company, our company scale is around 20 billion US dollars and more than 100,000 employees and have sales operation in over 100 countries. It's not easy to build any new and also significant big enough business internally. That's why we use the venture capital weight to build the team for ourselves. Just to send today's news, Intel had the intention to acquire the Global Foundry. So this is also the best way to enlarge the business into the field.
Thank you. And Tiffany, so Tiffany and I were talking about a lot about just organizational culture. And so if I could highlight that a little bit in your narrative, but what makes your organization unique?
Yeah, for sure. So, I joined MS&AD Ventures just a little under 2 years ago. And one of the things that I found very unique when I talked to John and my partners was that we were like a VC plus C. So I was working for Singtel Group, really great, had a really great experience there. But I wanted to do early stage. Early stage is typically very difficult for large corporations. And when I came over here, they said we structured it so that we could do very early stage deals, but at the same time still have all the benefits of a very large corporation. So I think that part makes it very unique. And then within my team, one of the things that I've built is a culture, what we call one team culture. And so we are a very, very collaborative team. I think in some teams where they're like, oh, you can only do investments or you can only do partnerships. I really encourage my team to work together and learn as much as possible. And that's really, really big because I've played on both sides before.
Fantastic, thank you. So let's dive into this notion of cross-border innovation, right? So I've personally had the pleasure of engaging with various ecosystems around the world, and really innovation is everywhere, right? Regardless of the size of your country. And so why does your team source innovation from companies outside, located outside in other geographies? And Tiffany, if I may start with you, just to continue to talk a little bit more about the cultural challenges or maybe the cultural advantages of working with geographically dispersed founders that are strategically valuable for your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So even though we are backed by a very large Japanese firm, we're actually a global, MS&AD is a global company. We have presence in 50 different countries. So we set up the CVC as a global firm, right? So we're not only Japan. Actually, we don't invest in Japan, but we don't do just Silicon Valley. We don't do just Southeast Asia. We are global first. We're here to find the best companies all over the world. And then there's another part, which is very difficult, but we're working on figuring out how to thread the right types of companies with the right regions, right? And it's very difficult, but that's also part of the fun.
And so are you seeing kind of clusters of innovation in where some areas are stronger than others? Yeah,
so I think, for US companies to go to Japan, there tends to be a language barrier. So, you're going to go after later stage companies that's ready to go and, build out a sales team to go out to Japan. Japan's also a very, very unique culture, right? So a lot of in-person meetings. So you just have to have the bandwidth to do that. For something like US companies that go to India or Southeast Asia, sometimes the cost actually doesn't make sense. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but in India, they're very nimble with building technology. So it really just depends. There's a lot of little cultural nuances. There's some cultures that are more receptive to, companies from different places. You have Israel, right, which is very open to working with the world. And I think they've done a very good job with collaborating with a lot of different regions.
Great. And Minette, it's kind of unfortunate the Philippines wasn't on that chart. Maybe that's just changes are bound to happen, right? And so why does your team source innovation from companies located in other geographies? And how do you view the different innovation clusters in Southeast Asia and beyond?
Maybe I'll take that second question first. And, I think it's super early. And that comment about not being on the map just means there's so much opportunity out there. But it is quite an early stage for much of Southeast Asia. And obviously there are countries that have a bigger scene, have more investments, more startups. You point to Indonesia, for example, with not only 4 unicorns, but they have a couple of unicorns, Gojek, Tokopedia, doing joint initiatives. So I think the way I would characterize it is, we're still exploring, we're all still finding our footing, finding our way, kind of building the map together. And I guess those would be 2 themes we see across Southeast Asia. Business models matter. You can perhaps bring the technology from anywhere, but the business models in Southeast Asia are quite innovative because of the need to make them, to help them scale. They've got to be applicable both to the people who are banked and have credit cards and cryptocurrency, but also to the man on the street who does not, who is, predominantly a cash person. I think the other important thing that we learned from is partnerships.
Recording stopped.
Partnerships are super easy and super important, and whether they are between startups and other startups or startups and large enterprises. In fact, when the pandemic started, we started to reach out much more to other investors in the region and to the startups. And a lot of value, I guess, is created by discovering each other, discovering the map. So I think that we learn to navigate different cultures, different languages, because Southeast Asia is just of its character, diverse. And so there's much more to be discovered.
Just out of curiosity, what is your favorite country to visit?
There is no favorite, Jay.
They're all your favorites. That works too. And then Michael, why does geography matter? It sounds like you're mainly focused around kind of the later growth stage that are very strategically aligned. What do you look for in other geographies to achieve your objectives?
Actually, as I mentioned, that we different from traditional version VC. We set up a goal. So in the past 5 years, we invested more than 50 companies, but most of them we actually merged and acquisition. We set up a goal. So we build our potential investment portfolio before we visit those candidates, and we proactively knock the door to visit, approach those candidates. So, for example, in the past 5 years, we invested several companies in Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, Macau, South Africa, North Africa, and German, and also most of the European countries. And 2 months ago, I also invested in one company in Los Angeles. Actually, I never met with the other company until now, but another company is around the $200 million the scope. I only go through the cyber conference to make a deal with them. Actually, we can find those cross-border candidates through our supply chain and also the demand chain. We run a business for more than 100 countries, so we have lots of the relationship with those supply chain or the demand chain. So the beginning stage, we have also visit several venture capital. They will provide the consulting for us, and also the CFA. They will provide some consultant service for us. So even we didn't meet with those companies, we can know and also evaluate the candidate before our decisions. So it's a little different from traditional way on that.
Sure, and if I may ask, stepping back for a little bit, like you're doing these things for strategic purposes. A lot of corporates are still trying to figure this out, right? Like how do you approach constructing your innovation portfolio or strategy? Is there a thesis? Do you find gaps? How do you go about trying to identify where and how to find the right partners?
I think I would just like we try to build a baseball team, and sometimes I will take this kind as an example. If you want to build one baseball team, you need to have several players. A nice team for the investment weight, and then we get out the goal on that. So you want to build a team, you can consider any kinds of function of this team. So and in the reverse way, we try to look for some consulting company or the virtual VC to help us to identify the right candidates in each function. So that's I think that's maybe one of our recipes on that. Yeah.
Sure. So building trust and tapping into other networks to get access.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. You know, when I was on the venture side, corporate venture side, you know, we spent a lot of time sourcing, right? I was personally seeing about 1,000 companies a year. And so how do you spend time sourcing, meeting and evaluating companies? More importantly, once you find a promising candidate, how does this cross-border collaboration work? You know, I'd love to deep dive a little bit and talk about metrics and KPIs that indicate a successful collaboration if that exists. I guess I'll leave it up to the speakers, whoever wants to take that first.
I guess I could go. So I can give an example. So one of the companies we invested in is Caro. Carl actually, the founder, Aaron, we used to be colleagues and he left to build Caro. But when we met, they're a used car, you know, platform, but they do a lot more than that. They also do insurance and warranty and financing. And so, you know, we put in some investment, but our parent company actually ended up building a partnership with them. And then the latest round, they also made investments there. So there were some natural synergies because Carl wasn't only in Singapore, but they played in actually several different countries in the Southeast Asia region, which was part of the footprint that we're in.
Was there a KPI or metric, or was it mainly because they were in that geography that you were trying to target?
So there's a partnership for distributing insurance as one part of the partnership. But I think the other part is like, we know that there's just certain things that we wouldn't be able to do in-house. So part of the partnerships has some learnings involved as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I can answer the question too. Yeah, I think we try to approach those company by we build up a nice long-term goal together. So different geographic company, for example, in the past they are our distributor or even the reseller in some country like Singapore or South Africa, and we have a new product and a new service. So that's why we try to find a partner in South Africa, and we work together to approach our customer together. So this is one of the ways that if we see the market and we have a long-term goal together, I think it's not difficult to build a KPI together and approach the business together. Yeah.
And you have parent support, right? Your parent company and the C-level executives are enabling this collaboration.
Yeah, it's a little weird because I'm also one of the C-level of the guys, so it's really quickly to do the decision. So frankly speaking, in the past when I invested like Singapore to buy the South Africa company, I only visit them around 2 hours and settle down the deal. Before we meet together, we didn't know each other. But I also am one of the business owner in this group, so it's quite easy for me to do the decision. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you. I think, Minette, it's a little bit more challenging when you work with early stage companies, but would love to hear how you look at cross-border collaboration.
I know, I was going to say at early stage, the metrics are not very present. I mean, obviously we look at the ability at revenue, so the ability to monetize. We do look at growth rates. And it is interesting because there are some companies that are quite small but grow very, very fast. One of the recent ones was a company that the team found and invested in last year called Kumu. And they're maybe just a bit over 2-3 years old. But they were monetizing at an amazing rate. They were growing their user base. Kumu is a company that does long form video streaming where people build their own shows. The analogy is a bit like online busking. So people sing, people talk about their favorite topics, and the audience can buy digital gifts to give the performers. So very much in the creator economy space. And in fact, to your point about metrics, one of the most interesting metrics I have found is Kumu's metric around financially viable individuals. So can creators make enough money by being on Kumu receiving gifts? And it is a great way to have people who normally would not survive the star system in entertainment industries doing well. And Kumu, 3 years old or so out of the Philippines, recently announced a partnership with another portfolio company, Wattpad, based in Canada. I think Wattpad is about 13 years old now. We invested in them, I think, 2015, 2016. And they have talked about how can you take the stories of Wattpad authors and bring them even more intimately close to the audience through video streaming. So you can see that cross-border collaboration is present across different cultures, different geographies, and also companies of different ages.
It's great to hear that word culture again, right? Because this is really about integration of culture and understanding what type of services works within the cultures that, of the geography that you serve. And so, I think there's a lot of founders also joining us. There's a lot of entrepreneurs here today. And so, like, if I was a startup founder, how best can I engage with you? Do I just go and cold call you? What advice do you have for the founders to have a meaningful first meeting?
Okay. Let me answer the question. I think for the standards are, as I mentioned, one example is I invest one company, go through the cyber conference, and we become the majority in the past 2 months. I think we are looking for the company, they know the right market and also the right people, right persons. If one company could be successful, I think the right market, right people, and right management will be the key matters. But however, we can help is the right management. We mature the company, so we're quite familiar with those management. So normally when we invest one company, like we try to rebuild their organization or even their infrastructure. And I think it's most important is the financial, the cash flow support on that. I think especially for some of the outing firms online now, these Taiwanese companies. I think a Taiwanese company have one of the very big advantages is our interest rates very, very, very low compared to other countries. For example, in Dubai, the interest low is around 16%. In Brazil, it's 18%. You can imagine that for South Africa, it's more than 12% on another country. So we can provide the best cash flow support. And the other way is most of the startup company face one problem is that their cash cost is very high. They get cash out from investor which is very high. But they cannot loan the money from the bank yet because they are just a startup. So at this stage, you can find a strategy partner to support you with the cash flow. And in one other way is for the account receivable, account payable. I think from our corporate support, we can provide the better term for AR and AP. So if you have a nice cash conversion cycle and help your business a lot, I think that's another metric that is a very critical way on that. On the other hand, is for the logistic wise, for the geography logistic, it's very complicated, especially from the past 2 years. If you have a good channel to support logistic, well, I can also run business where. The third one will be your IT system. For the startup companies, it's very difficult to have a well-defined IT system from CRM, supply chain management, or even human resource management systems. That they don't have such kind of experience on that. So the best case, if one of the good corporate to work together, it can shrink or eliminate your suffer on this process. And this is my suggestion.
Thank you.
So, to get the meeting, I think the best is actually to go through the network. So the majority of the deals that I closed, I think good 99% of them, they were referred by either another VC or another one, a founder. So because I have someone to go to, if it was a terrible meeting, I can turn to that person and say, hey, what happened? Like, what was up with that one? And, you know, VCs, they do a lot of back channeling and trading notes, right? The second piece is I think you should really do your research on the VC. There's a lot of different VCs out there and a lot of, you know, themes and categories that they invest in. Like, you know, when I was at Singtel, we did a lot of cybersecurity and we didn't do tons of consumer, at least in the US. So like I would get pitched by these consumer companies, but if you went and looked at my LinkedIn and looked at the type of companies that I was managing, there was very, very few consumer. So it didn't really make any sense. At MS&AD, you know, we're typically early stage and we like things that are like very big market bets. So, you know, just very disruptive technologies, right? Versus some VC firms, they don't want to touch those type of deals. So understanding that VC is in that firm is quite important.
Yeah, I want to build on that. I think everybody has the impression that all venture capital firms are the same as each other, but they're not. And displaying that you understand what a company does and doesn't do is super helpful. We were doing a study on what are the most effective channels to us. And while we are open, our website will accept pitches. I think the best quality pitches we have had are the ones where it was an introduction from somebody who knew us and knew the startup. But, you know, having said that, Michael had said something earlier about looking at the track record, looking at the founders. And that's super important too. And sometimes building the relationship is about reaching out in events like this. So I have found that I can be in an event, and whether it was live and in person in the times when we could travel a lot, or even for online webinars such as this, people who reach out on LinkedIn frequently, and who reference something that had been said, that was discussed. This just displays a curiosity, I think, and a persistence that is interesting. So I guess a good reminder is that the firms that invest are also interested in meeting new people. So we are curious, and we're happy to meet new companies each event we're at.
Sure. And so, you know, just to play off of that, what if I was just the first time founder straight out of college, still building my network, but I was onto something and I decided to cold email you? What would make you say, wow, that's interesting and would want to know more? Like, have you know, I'm sure there's some metrics, things in there, but maybe in the past, like what caught your eye and said, wow, like I'll take this meeting because it just sounds really unique?
Deep knowledge and understanding, not just of the technology, but the ecosystem and the human interactions around that technology for me.
Tiffany?
So I actually do a lot of mentoring of young entrepreneurs. I think someone who just has drive, right? They're like going, and sometimes they're even a little bit annoying, but you're like, let me just steer this energy in the right direction. I love meeting those type of founders. If you went in and you did the homework, you know, like I get a lot of questions like, oh, how does venture capital work? Like that's a very easy to Google that, right? But if you came in with a very unique question, I'd be more than happy to spend time with you.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think the dynamics might be a little bit different for Michael, but you know, has there been a founder that kind of addressed the pain point before you met with them?
Yeah, for me, I think most of our meeting we studied with each other, and we try to build a team. So we build the team for the medical service. So for example, for medical service, we invest in ultrasound device and hemo, the diagnostic, and endoscope, such kind of technologies. So those the startup companies, if they are in this scope, then they can also start out wish list. So they're easy to link together. The other one is for the business the software. So those information is quite easy to access from the internet, Google and that. So for the startup company, I think most of the I also invest in a startup company actually. Some company when they set up in the first day we acquire it. Just because, as I mentioned, the right market is very important. If they can find the right market, if they build the right markets, actually can get a lot of the interest on their company. The second one is the sentence. The other two speakers said the right person, right people, right team is very important for us. So we'll evaluate if the actually from our investment way. We try to recruit the team and not just the investor company. So if the team is really qualified for the right market, we help on other management issues. So actually, it's easy for us to do the decision after the meeting. So we can know each other before the meeting instead of go together.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. In my first year, out of that 1,000 or so companies that I met, only one actually did enough homework to address a pain point that I didn't know about, right? And to me, that still to this day, like, just has this impact on me because they just did a little bit of homework and talked to a pain point that my parent company at Docomo had. And they just came out with some numbers, say, look, here's what we think you have a problem with, here's how our technology solves it. And I was just impressed. And I said, how did you guys even do this? They said, oh, we just did some Google searches and wanted to figure out how we could, help you strategically. And I was like, wow, that was so impressive, right? And so that was like a first meeting for me where I was just wowed by the founder because they just did enough homework to frame the conversation so well. So I think there's a lot of strategies to do that. We're almost at the top of the hour, and it's unfortunate, but Minette has another engagement, so we're going to have to shortly say goodbye to her. But before you go, just the last question for you, which is what key insights do you have that you wish you knew when you first started this whole journey in corporate venture?
That's a great question. So again, as I said in the beginning, I am not by nature a venture capitalist. This is my first time doing venture capital. And so I come in where the key advantage, if you can call it that, my key asset is my ignorance and therefore my curiosity. I don't believe that I know everything. Somebody had said this, what is your superpower? And I think my superpower is asking questions, probing till dry, being curious. I guess I have learned that over time. In the beginning, I thought that the key asset that a venture capital investor brought was their own imagination, their own vision, our ability to listen to a pitch and think, oh my gosh, you could do so many things with this. I've learned over time to pull myself back. The dream is not the investor's dream. The dream is the founder's dream. And if what I do is ask questions and listen really hard, it helps us to avoid making investments in companies that perhaps have a different path from what we imagine. And I think that's what I wish I knew from the beginning. It would have helped us not make investments that perhaps were better suited to other investors, but also to listen to the people who said, I don't have all the answers, but these are the problems I'm keen to fix. And I think by learning to pull ourselves back from that, to listen, to ask more questions, and to ask open questions, not closed-ended ones. I think we have discovered a lot more, both about technology, but also about people. And fundamentally, that's what the investments are for, to make life better for people.
Love it. Thank you. Well, let's take a moment to introduce Joan Yao, who's VP of Kickstart Ventures, who's I think highlighted now. And goodbye to Minette. Thank you so much for your time and joining us today. Thank you. Okay. So to just kind of continue down the line with Tiffine, if I may, Key insights you wish you knew before you got into this whole world of ventures?
So I'm very persistent and stubborn, and I think as I get older and spend more time in this field, I think it's sort of, you got to be patient sometimes, especially when you're working with a very, very large corporation and trying to do a partnership. So I think the balance of like continuing to be extremely persistent, but balancing that with some patience. For those who are actually thinking about setting up a CVC or trying to go down that path, I've been very lucky. Singtel Group has been very great. MS&AD has been really amazing, how we're structured. But I have a lot of peers who, where it was just, the CVC was very poorly structured and it was very, very difficult for them to succeed. So I highly recommend just making sure that your CVC is structured appropriately.
Yeah. Lots of resets and pivots there.
Yes.
And Michael, any words of wisdom or things that you wish you knew before you got started?
I think there's no magic crystal ball that everyone knows that. So we have a crystal ball. We can invest Alibaba or Amazon 20 years ago.
Sure.
But the most interesting thing is this journey is very good for me. I'm engineered head before I handled the business before 2008. Personally, I have more than 150 patents in the past years. So in the past, I always trust myself that I can develop anything by myself. I don't need to invest at other companies. But in the past 5 years, and I also experienced a good advantage. I just saw the participant list is one of my German general manager also online. Around 4 years ago, I invested in his company, and he also said he wanted to invest one small company in Spain. As you know, in 2016, the Europe economy is very, very bad, especially for South European. Another company almost bankrupt. So we only spent $1 to buy that company, a very small company. In the past 4 years, we got, of course, 1 million times the feedback from that company. But the most interesting is that the reward is going to come from financial million times the rewards. But the most important is that we build a good relationship with that Spain company. And also they say we save their jobs. And that's share with everyone. So.
Great, thank you. And there's Joan. Hi, welcome.
Hi everyone.
Would you like to say a quick introduction and hello as you're joining us into the Q&A section?
Hi. So hi everyone. I'm Joan from Kickstart Ventures. I work with Minette, who unfortunately had to leave. But I day-to-day kind of manage investments for Kickstart, and it's nice to be with you all today.
Cool. Welcome. So we got a handful of really interesting questions. I think I'm just going to go down the line. And so for early stage corporate VCs engaging in early stage ventures, what are the key red flags and green flags in early startups that you're looking for?
So when it comes to early stage, we're really focused on the team, right? Because there's no metrics. Whatever they're pitching to is probably going to change. So I think, so what we're really looking for is, does the entrepreneur or the team have command of that sector, right? So if you come in and you're like, there's no competition, which is usually not true, what it tells me, it's like you don't really understand your sector. For green flags, I guess, is that like positive signals? I think it's just like someone who, they know a couple of the competitors and understand the pros and cons, and then where they think they can be differentiated. Another thing that I look for is that this persistent quality, right? Like you are going to get knocked down so many times as an entrepreneur, and like you have to get back up, and then you have to report to the investors. You have to manage your employees. So like this person, especially the CEO, they need to get up over and over and over and over again. So I really check for like whether this person can handle that type of stress.
Yeah, if I can kind of just top up to what Tiffine was saying, I completely agree about kind of understanding the market. I mean, sometimes, like we'll get pitches. It's like, hi, I want to create a food delivery service. And you're like, like the 5 that we already have, and how will yours be different, you know? And so yeah, exactly, like a simple competitive scan sometimes I feel, you know, would help a lot. And not a surprising number of founders don't do that. They're like, this is my idea, but they don't look at kind of the general market that they exist in. And then I guess a couple of other things in team, exactly what Tiffany was saying. I think data driven. So, you know, when you launch something, stuff will come out, and it should guide how you develop your product. And so you can't be, as I was saying earlier, kind of so stuck on your first idea. You have to be able to be open to what the market is telling you. And yeah, like kind of obsess about your customer, really care about who they are, and talk to them, and pivot accordingly.
Sure. And I'm assuming you look at coachability or compatibility with your team culture and their team culture.
Oh, sorry, I'm assuming. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, I think humility is probably a big thing for us. You know, like, you're not gonna get it right all the time, and you know, you have to be kind of open enough to take that feedback either from your investors or from your team members, and be willing to grow and improve.
And is there an advantage? Say I was from, you know, not from Silicon Valley trying to pitch to you guys, and maybe it was somewhat of a commodity space. Do you give pros and cons being, you know, maybe if I was a startup founded in Taiwan, for example, but maybe there's a dominant player in Silicon Valley. How do you kind of vet that or give a fair view between, you know, this smaller startup company versus a potential giant elsewhere?
For me, I'm not so much concerned with where the founder physically at. Like, especially in Taiwan, there's a lot of really talented people. Just the expectation I have for Taiwan, as I do for the other entrepreneurs around the world, is, are they building a global company, right? Like, I know some of the deals in Taiwan tend to be a little bit smaller, and it's a certain ecosystem, but I'm also, from an outsider coming in, I also have, you know, I think Taiwan has a lot of potential to build very, very big global companies. And I'm really looking forward to that actually happening. So I'm spending some time in Taiwan for that reason.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. And how long do you kind of observe, you know, deciding on how or where to invest? Like, maybe by sector or by industry. You know, are you guys tend to invest in sensors in the market at a very, very early stage, or is it more of a conservative approach where you're watching the evolution, and when do you jump in?
So I do early stage, and, you know, when I was younger, I figured I had more control over things, and as you get older, you realize you don't have control. So for our, you know, it's sort of, we do some thematic research, but, you know, we sort of meet the companies as they come in, as they get referred in. When it looks like a good deal, you better, you know, jump in, or else it's gone.
Yeah. If I can kind of, again, tack onto that, Tiffany, I'm sorry, I keep following on to you, but no, like, I you know, something I was thinking about that I wish I'd known starting in VC, is timing is important. Meaning, what do I mean by that? In the Philippines, the digital ecosystem, economy, more consumers are coming online and buying online today. When we started in 2012, 13, 14, there were already some early consumer startups. You know, we invested in a company that was trying to do like Warby Parker in the Philippines, for example. And you see that idea in the US, and you're like, wow, that's amazing, right? We see so many like direct-to-consumer brands, but kind of you have to contextualize it in the region that you operate in and the markets that you operate in to see if, like, okay, is that an idea that's going to prosper today in my market, right? Or what is the horizon for that to happen? And then kind of, yeah, like make the bet, understanding when it's kind of likely to ripen, right? And try to figure out if you can support it long enough to get there, or, you know, if it's just not the right time.
Sure. So if there was, I guess I'm assuming you saw a Warby Parker-like company from the Philippines, would you invest kind of to think that the consumer expectation or mindset changes over time? Like, do you think that you could invest to influence cultural change?
Oof. I think it takes a lot of time and a lot of money and many different people concertedly investing in a sector. So I personally don't think like one VC, maybe unless you're SoftBank, I don't know, like one VC has it in them to like continually fund a company to like completely change a paradigm necessarily.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. This question is for Michael. Do you prefer smaller scale investments before jumping into larger ones, or only invest after thorough evaluations, and why?
Oh, yeah. Actually, our investment scope is very wide. As mentioned, we invest more than 10 public companies from the market. And actually, we acquire them, but we also invest more than the 50 companies that are startups or in the C-level company. The thing that the goal difference is I think for all the startup company, we want to reference for maybe concept for your reference is that just like basketball is very hard in Taiwan or in US, but not very famous in Europe. The same is for the soccer game is very crazy in Europe, and it's not so good in Taiwan. So it's one of the startup company how to cooperate or be invested by venture, especially for the CVC, the corporate VCs, that it maybe must be meet their market requirement. But different country just mentioned by Joan is that Philippines, they're now currently economic ecosystem is quite different from US or in Japan, and also there's a time lag. Of course, for the US, they have to lead in the market or the ecosystem. So for other country, we will set up a company in other country outside of the US. You want to get an investment. You must make sure that those kind of the topic is also still to be interesting in US. For example, for semiconductor, maybe very nice in Taiwan, but not so good in Europe from French speaking. But on the other hand, is that for Taiwanese investor that we try to find some good value company in US. Some of the good company in US, but their market values are so high because it is for US it's out of date. But that kind of company is also quite good for the Asia, yes. So their P ratio is low. If we acquire them and go back to the Asia, it's very nice investment. So there's a different country culture and different, and we can find some value gap between. So we can find a very good opportunity to work together.
Sure. And in the context of this cross-border, collaboration, really, when you do a strategic investments, do you have a timeline that you target to provide financial results, whether that's by strategic selling or by whatever it may be?
Yes, of course. Sometimes I say we are lucky. We are not looking for the financial result yet, but we looking for the synergy. But frankly speaking, the financial result is pretty nice. As I mentioned, I invested in that company 2 months ago, and even after 2 months, I got the 10 times the return from another company. Out of my expectation, because I have no chance because of COVID issue. I cannot meet with the founder until now. But it's a very nice investment. Our cash back almost 100% within 2 years, and the market value is very nice. I think that now the information is not so difficult to get yet, especially for any kinds of the health fund venture capital. We also invest the VC. We also invest the fund. So it's quite different. So we have a different arm to provide information to us. On the other hand, is everyone can look for the lots of public company. And in a public company, for example, in Taiwan, we have around 2,000 public companies in different countries, different public companies. They also have their supply chain and also their distributor information stuff. From the infrastructure, you can find some good target insights. And the same as a stock market, we try to find some company to be undervalued. Yeah. If a lot of companies are undervalued in one country, so that's why I buy some company from Singapore and Hong Kong. In Singapore and Hong Kong, retail is undervalued yet because it's not so popular at this moment, but still quite good in other countries. So we can buy some software company from Singapore. They developed those software to Southeast Asia or even the Middle East. It's quite good for this kind of trade. So just for example, everyone, we different is that we set up our goal. We build our potential portfolio. So our portfolio is built by ourselves. So we build our potential portfolio and proactive to knock down and to approach those candidates. Of course, we not every type of the business is successful, but by this way we can find some really match the company for us. Yeah.
Sure. And for Tiffine and Joanne, if you do make strategic investments where there is a excuse me, like a business relationship, is there a time horizon that you guys typically target? Is it 6 to 12 months? Is it more of a longer bet, like 24 to 36 months? How do you guys see like kind of the not the IRR of the investment, but like of the partnership?
So, well, actually, you want to go first? Actually, I could copy you.
Okay, let me think. All right, sure. I mean, we basically we are the kind of innovation scouts, right? For Globe and the Ayala Group. And what I've found kind of in the years that I've been doing this, right, is we may invest in something, and that is a gift to what Tiffany was saying earlier about being structured correctly, right? Like we are allowed or we have autonomy and independence to make a bet that we think may be relevant or hopefully will be relevant to our market in the future. But sometimes when you bring that to a corporate partner, like in-house, their minds are on other things, it's not on the priority list, that particular budget cycle, whatever. And so I think what we've learned in terms of business development and approaching is you kind of have to set regular touch points with your counterparts in the different business units. And it's just a check-in, maybe, we have a business development manager in-house who every quarter or 6 months will check in with people. She attends the events. It's about being in front of the people that you want to be working with. And it's not about hard selling also something, right? But it's about kind of keeping present, and then when they need it, hopefully being there. So I've seen us start, conversation, whether it was, I don't know, about chatbot company or an HRIS company, and initially the feedback would be oh, we don't need that right now, right? But anywhere from 6 to 12 months down the road, sometimes a bit longer, but I would say from when they see to maybe when the need arises, come back in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and can kind of get the conversation going then. Yeah.
So how we do it, there's two functions of my team. One is to do the investments. And so they're very early stage, and typically they're not ready to work with a large corporate. So our expectation is, if there is some sort of strategic tie, because again, the company can pivot, we would expect to start working with them in maybe 3 to 5 years. On the other hand, my biz dev team, they really work on finding technologies to partner with in the next 6 to 12 months. And so they work with a lot closer with the business units to, refine what the problem set is. And I think as innovation leaders, how I usually set it up is first, I'll find a couple of companies that are relevant to answer their question. But actually, a lot of the business units, they don't know what they don't know, right? Because part of our job is to be the sensors and say, hey, look, there's all these other weird things that's happening. And so I like to share a couple of those. And I usually like add one or two like really crazy companies where you're just looking at it, you're like, that's really stupid and ridiculous, but it's actually happening, right? But it gives them sort of an overview of like what is actually happening to the world while problem solving. And then it's, then they'll be more interested in coming back and visit our team.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think there's a handful of questions about being Asian entrepreneurs, and maybe they feel a little disadvantaged to like Silicon Valley and getting attracting investment. Maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's a collaboration thing. How would you coach an entrepreneur to overcome that unknown?
So as an entrepreneur, your whole job is to figure out what your unfair advantage is. So what is the unfair advantages of being a Taiwanese founder? Answer that question first.
Fair.
Yeah, I would add, I guess, that again, personally, I started this job in 2016, and Southeast Asia was a quieter market. Like, it was bubbling up, but definitely like didn't have the attention of whether it was kind of the tech press, if you will. Like nobody was writing about Grab or Gojek, in 2016, maybe one article on TechCrunch, that was it, right? Like, and what I've seen over the past 5 years is there's been more and more coverage of kind of Southeast Asian markets, or Asia Pacific in general, and more, let's call it, I don't know, US based kind of bulge bracket VC funds are opening offices here. They're seeing the opportunity that's available in this market, and especially for consumer. We don't invest as much in kind of deep tech or manufacturing, and maybe Michael, you can say more about that. But at least I think for consumer, again, I stress the Asian digital consumer is here, and that market is growing, and it's going to take a fair bit of money to fund that growth, and there will be a fair bit of money to be made from that growth. And so I think if you are an Asian founder, and are looking at a market of several billion people across just Asia alone, there's huge opportunity here. And if you build something meaningful in this region, in this neck of the woods, like they'll come find you, I think.
That's fair. Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on the venture studios being born out of Asia? Like, so that, the incubator accelerator thing boomed over 10 years ago in Silicon Valley. The globe, the ecosystems around the world has kind of adopted it and kind of start ideating and putting things together. How does that look in the Asia market? Do you see promise there? Like, what's the trend? Are you guys banking on it?
Yeah, go ahead, Michael, please.
One of my observations is that just like a Taiwanese company, I think most of the large corporate in Taiwan, we are accelerated actually. It's the same as our group from 1996 to 2006. We acquired several companies. So we stopped our business from $1 billion to more than $10 billion in that 10 years. The last point is, I think it's similar to Philippines, that we know the market, local market, so we're quite familiar with the supply chain and also the demand side. So we're easy to help those startup companies to work together. I think from our investment process that we are also enterprise, highlights that we re-enterprise with the local founders, because we develop a different management way and a market strategy with the company. The other one is for the Sunnyvale, also for the Silicon Valley investor, that Taiwan, and also I think now is quite common that Taiwan is a very nice talent and also the good cost and performance development. So the same now in the past, especially for the past 3 years, lots of the investor are also from the Silicon Valley to Taiwan, especially in the semiconductor field. But the other one is also very nice for the business, the software. So for the business software is very popular. I think the biggest investment for Silicon Valley in the past 20 years is business software instead of the semiconductor or the automotive device. For the business software, it's just in the beginning stage for the Asia area. So if Silicon Valley, the VC can invest Asia, the business software company, I think they will enjoy the very nice growth in the coming future.
You know, what do you think about kind of the local incubator accelerators, maybe in the Philippines? You know, how's that going?
Got it. I wasn't sure actually when you went Venture Studios, like, you know, the kind of, they have the component parts to make apps and stuff. No, okay, so just like incubators and accelerators. I think we've seen a growth, I would say, in kind of incubators and accelerators in the Philippines and in the region. I think what has been equally as important is the increase in angel investors and early stage investors. So, you know, the part I think that kind of those first few checks in a company and folks who will support companies when they're just starting out is very important, because it helps, you know, get you to kind of an MVP, and, you know, then have kind of more VCs, whether it's financial or corporate, have a look at you. So yeah, I think in general what we're seeing here is an increase in that activity, and obviously, as I've said many times now, like the more that, you know, the digital economy picks up, the more people are kind of interested to fund that space. So it's kind of becoming a virtuous circle.
Do you see more enterprise consumer in your world?
Actually, so that's what's interesting, right? Like, I would say the first, I don't know, 6-7 years of Kickstart, a lot of what we did were like more enterprise solutions, because you know, you had a market basically, at least, like you had some chance of being able to sell that to like a business who might need it, right? But over the past 3 years, I've seen kind of us turn the corner, and as again you have more consumers online, B2C is starting to become really viable and interesting. B2C, serving small and medium enterprises, those things are really kind of taking off, not just in my country, in the Philippines, but I think across the region. So yeah, it's been an interesting change there. So right now I feel B2C is kind of more the flavor of whatever the next year or two, and then maybe enterprise, the next generation of enterprise will come in after that.
I see. Am I back now?
There you go.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Finally, great to join the crowd and the cool kids. So I'm also seeing, I think, some questions that really also grabbed my interest, specifically around, I think, for CVC. A lot of time you have to consider, I guess, the strategy focus of your mothership. And for Michael particularly, I think that's really one of our very particular focus. And I think we have questions around, I guess this will differ company from company, but how long does it take for you to develop what's the key areas for your company? So like, say, for example, everybody talks about AI, 5G, you know, all of this cloud, but is it like you have a team, you hire researchers, you have external consultants to decide, okay, in the next 5 to 10 years, this is what we're going to do. And then once you set that, we're going to find, you know, like companies that fit into those areas. Kind of curious in terms of how you each do it. And I think a related question, and also for Tiffany and maybe for everyone, is that Tiffany especially mentioned that you like to invest in something big, like big markets. Can you define a little bit, like say, for example, is 10 billion market size big? Is 50 billion market size big? Can you actually also share a little bit, when you look into potential startups and founders, what would excite you? So basically, just like a bit of behind the scene strategy when it comes to developing the corporate strategies and also the scale would be interesting. So maybe let's start with Michael.
Okay, thanks. I think that there's a very weird equation is that when you sold out something, someone buy your your stock. That means which one is correct. Someone sells, someone buys, so it means that everyone is have the right decision. Just try to find just a suitable metric for your corporate or for yourself. So the same as us, we try to figure out what kind of business is suitable for our next step. So the different company also a different goal and those strategy. For Qisda, we have the sales office in more than 100 countries, and this is one of our good advantage on that. So it's easy for us if we migrate to the service-oriented business. It's not difficult for us to penetrate the market yet because we already have such kind of infrastructure. But this kind of the investment goal is maybe not suitable for another different corporate. So the most important is try to figure out your corporate DNA first. If your DNA is for marketing oriented or for the manufacturing oriented or for the research development oriented, it will very different kinds of your target goal. The second one is try to find a partner to work together. So if you set up a goal, you can easy to find the right team player together. So the other one is because we stay in the technological field. The good news is that if you miss anything in the technology field, don't feel upset because the new technology will come very quickly. So don't need to feel any frustration if you miss anything. So we look for the next 10 years, 20 years, always can find a good target. But I think, but most important is we always solve the problems under some constraints. That's the engineer type, but also for any kinds of investment ways. We always have the budget limitation. We always have the resource limitation. So the best case is try to find out the most suitable portfolio for your corporate. And that's my suggestion on that. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So the keywords that I'm hearing, one, partnership, and that's what this event is all about. And two, well, I guess no FOMO. So don't worry if you missed out something. And also you have to find ways to work under constraints. I guess that's pretty much the spirit of entrepreneurship. And I guess for Tiffine, just kind of like one last part, similar question. MS&AD, develop your strategy areas, and also just kind of like in terms of market size, what's big for you?
Yeah, so I mean, actually, one of the reasons why I joined MS&AD is that they have this core mission of building a better future for the world. So it's a lot around diversity, inclusion, a lot about, making it a safer world. And so actually that, that's part of the core mission. And then what are the extensions of that? And that's part of why, our firm actually exists. So we can actually help figure some of those things out. And then they, headquarters takes care of sort of the more immediate strategy. And we're focused on, much further out. In terms of big market bets, it's not that I have a specific number in mind, but what I look for is sometimes a technology that potentially can transform how we exist today. So I'll give you an example. We have a company called Neurolight, and what they do is they use eye tracking to do early detection for dementia. So usually this is extremely expensive to do. And most of the time you're like, oh, this is too hard. But they're able to get this down all the way for it to work on your phone using the sensors from your phone or your laptop. So now imagine embedding that into the cameras and being able to do that assessment, simultaneously during a intake session versus where it has to be an hour of, getting the appointment with a doctor where you have to go to a place where this machine. So if this thing fundamentally starts working, it's going to change a lot of how our world works.
Thank you. And, definitely, I think I can see why you and Jay would have a lot in common to talk about. Tech for good, tech for a better future. Joan, how about for Kickstart and also Ayala Group, you know, in terms of your corporate strategy and everything? I know that we're right at 9:30 a.m. here and 6:30 in San Francisco time. So, but, you know, just a quick last comment.
Couple of words. Exactly. Well, thank you everyone for, you know, sticking with us the past couple of hours here. No, I mean, I guess, you know, I go back to, you know, the good fortune we have, you know, to kind of be given kind of a mandate to pursue our thesis. You know, and I think it's really about kind of funding the future, right? Like, where could the world be going? And even if kind of our business units today are only kind of scratching the surface of that, like, how can we skate to where the puck will be and hopefully invest in things that can help them. So I'll give you an example, and then, you know, we can end it here. In our case, like we have a business unit called AC Energy, which aims to be kind of the largest producer of renewable energy in let's say the region, right? By 2030, I think is their goal. And it's great to produce energy, but you got to have, for example, somewhere to store it. You know, for it to actually like replace, right, fossil fuels. And so, you know, knowing that that's the mission, you know, I think one thing that we're keen to look for is solutions in energy storage, because, you know, we know that that's where they're headed, and this is a need, and not just for Ayala. I think it's a need for the world, and it's really nice when, I guess, like, you know, your mission can intersect also with the corporate mission and hopefully what's good for the world. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, I guess what a great session. I think I have learned so much, and I hope that you have as well. I want to thank all of our speakers, Minette, who left earlier, and Michael, Tiffine, Joan, and also our interviewer, brilliant Jay. Thank you so much. Yes, this is probably a great demonstration of cross-border teamwork. And I hope that this is just the beginning and you will get to further connect one way or the other. Don't go yet, because next month we're going to have another session to talk about the future of mobility, and particularly about the EV space. How will the supply chain and also the EV rising stars change the game plan in the auto industry? We are going to have Jack Chen, CEO of Foxconn's MIH Consortium and co-founder of NIO. Also, the moniker Mike, currently CPO of QEV and formerly COO of RIMAC. This is going to be another incredible session. Feel free to use the QR code on the screen to RSVP or follow the channels at Anchor Taiwan or DIGITIMES for further information. With that, thank you so much again for joining us, and we hope to see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.